Palworld is a new survival monster collecting game that was released into early access to both Steam and Xbox Game Pass on January 19th, 2024. The best way to describe this game is Ark Survival meets Pokemon meets Breath of the Wild, quoted by some ordinary gamers. If you've been on the internet, specifically Twitter, and I'm not calling it X, I just don't like calling it X, you would know that Palworld has become a huge talking point and, at the point of writing the script, has sold over 8 million copies on Steam alone. But when you have a game this big, you're bound to have controversy spread. Before we get into any of the controversies though, I think I should explain something, and also to tell you to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more videos. I won't be doing a review on the game because I don't feel confident in my abilities to write a cohesive script and explain the game, so I'll link the previously mentioned Some Ordinary Gamers review in the description. He can explain it leagues better than I would ever be able to. With that out of the way, let's finally get into the controversies. By far the biggest one I've seen is about the devs Pocket Pair blatantly stealing, plagiarizing, and overall just copyright infringing on Pokemon designs. The most prominent examples are with the likes of the pals Dire Howl, Lavander, Dynawesome, and Verdash, all of which I'll be putting on screen with their counterparts to kind of like compare the two, see for yourself. With these examples, some might be more obvious than others, but is this really plagiarism? I am not an expert on these types of things, especially for the whole like legal standpoint of it, so let's just see what Google has to say. Google states that plagiarism is, quote-unquote, the practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own. While this seems like the case, it doesn't entirely apply here. Mainly in the fact that more than one person can have an idea for, say, an electric rat animal that you can catch in a ball, but in this situation, it's for the designs of the monsters. Let's use Verdash as an example again. Verdash obviously looks a lot like Cinderace in a great aspect of its design. Looking at these two, and reading the definition for plagiarism again, it's kind of a bad way of putting it, because the way I'm reading it is taking a fan-made Pokemon and using that in the game. Also, the person who pioneered the argument on Twitter straight up scaled the Palworld models to fit the Pokemon models, and even admitted to doing so because they don't like the game for being edgy Pokemon. What would fit this debate more is in the case of copyright infringement, which, quote-unquote, occurs when a person uses content protected by copyright in a way that violates rights granted in the Copyright Act. Now the story changes a bit, because the Copyright Act protects the works of someone who placed that protection on it. To explain it in an easy way, and a way that I would honestly understand, that same fan-made Pokemon was placed under copyright. If Pocket Pair were to use it in this case, the fan-mon artist can sue them, take them to civil court, and have criminal charges placed on Pocket Pair, from what I understand. Now for two fun facts. Do you want to know when the first trailer for Palworld came out? Almost 3 years ago, specifically on June 5th, 2021. If the Pokemon Company really saw this as copyright infringement, and Palworld did infringe on the designs of Pokemon, the game just straight up wouldn't be out today. It wouldn't see any more trailers after the first one. Watching through the trailer, most of the designs are the same back then as they are now, so if this was an issue, Nintendo definitely would have done something by now. One thing I would very much like to mention is that, at the end of the day, if you're making designs based off of real animals and don't want to deviate much from the animal so you can actually tell what it's supposed to be, they're going to look like that said animal. Let's go back to Dire Howl and Lycanroc, of which are heavy arguments that the devs are infringing on copyright. They're wolves. Last time I checked, wolves look relatively similar to each other. That's just how it is. Fact 2 is that Pokemon didn't invent the monster collecting genre. The first game to have the monster collecting genre is NetHack's Megami Tensei, which allowed the player to summon demons to fight for you. Now, collecting demons in Megami Tensei isn't a big part of the gameplay, but it's still there. With games like Pokemon and Dragon Quest, those are the pioneers of the genre. But literally anyone is allowed to have a go at making their own monster collecting game, so this doesn't count as an argument for Palworld infringing on copyright, if it even was one. Now the last bit is about AI. I'm not going to put my stance on AI art or anything like that in this video, as it has no place being here. AI has been a massive discussion everywhere on the internet, and the talk isn't great. To put it simply, if you haven't been under a rock for the past year and a half, maybe longer, you'd know a majority of the people do not like the fact that AI art, whether it be videos, music, or pictures, is becoming so prevalent and people feel like it takes away people's jobs. It also doesn't help the major companies are trying to push AI to help with said tasks to help workflow. Now, AI hasn't been a big controversy of Palworld, or at least from what I've seen, so I could definitely be missing something, and if so, please put it in the comments. The CEO of Pocket Pair does like using AI, but there isn't any proof that they used it for Palworld. But if we look at the game history of Pocket Pair, they have a single game that does use AI, and it's called AI Art Imposter, where you have to use AI to draw a picture based on a shared prompt between everyone except for one person. That person has to guess the prompt as best as possible to fit in and not get voted out. Kinda sounds like Among Us, obviously jumping on that bandwagon. I don't know if it's a good game or not, because I personally haven't played it, but Pocket Pair definitely is at least comfortable with using AI to help make their games, if they aren't already. One more thing before we review, the Pokemon Company actually issued a small statement as of writing the script, basically stating that they have noticed the uproar and will investigate any legal issues the game might have. Whether they will do anything or not is entirely within their hands, but from what we went over today, it's pretty unlikely. Now, let's review. Palworld, while taking heavy inspiration from Pokemon and other games like Ark Survival and Breath of the Wild, does not, as far as I can tell, fall under any categories we went over. Now we're getting into opinion territory. If you don't agree with my standpoint, that's entirely fair and I respect it. Being a massive Pokemon fan myself, since Black and White actually, it's entirely fine to be concerned with other companies stealing each other's work, especially if it's one of your favorite companies, so I understand where people can come from with being concerned. What I do not condone, however, is lying to push an agenda, as we saw Biofrog on Twitter, spreading misinformation, and harassing people over something you deem bad. I can guarantee that is not something Nintendo or the Pokemon Company International want you to do for them, nor act like a white knight over a video game franchise. As for my opinions, I do not think Palworld falls under any of the topics we went over today, and people are massively overreacting, in my opinion. Reiterating that, just in case you didn't hear it when I said it the first time. Pokemon themselves have taken monster design aspects from games like Dragon Quest to inspire Pokemon all the way back as Gen 1. I also actually really enjoy the game, and is close to being up there as one of my top favorites right alongside Pokemon. I've played countless hours on Xbox at this point with my girlfriend to be around level 30 at this point, and even doing a separate playthrough for streaming with my friends, which you can also find the first video on this channel, or if you want, you can watch the entire livestream VOD over on my second channel, Houndour Live, which I will also link in the description. I am so excited to see what they have planned for the future of this game. Anyway, have a good night, and maybe I'll see you in another video.